Want to welcome everyone to the Faith and Friendship Virtual Support Group. We're here to support those living with chronic illness, to help them and their caregivers and loved ones feel safe in this space where we are making sure that we stay compassionate as we share experiences and connect and draw strength within the community. This group is open to all faiths and all backgrounds are welcome. We invite you to visit the Facebook or YouTube pages for the community resource guidelines and ways to stay connected. I want to thank everyone who is here and who will be watching this in the future, and to just know you are not alone.
I am going to be your presenter for today. My name is Daniel Simon. As you can tell by the beautiful accent, I'm not originally from here. I'm originally from Haiti, but I've been in America since I was 14 years old. I'm 51 now. I can't really claim Haiti anymore. All right, I'm hoping everybody have their beer, their wine, water, whatever they need, juice, to follow along. All right, so this little presentation, it's pretty much on how to think like a smart person, right? The title I picked was on purpose to kind of trigger people, right? To ask yourself, am I been thinking like a smart person, right? If you think of yourself as a smart person, then this presentation might challenge you a little bit. So pretty much, it's how some basic method to follow to help you make better decisions, right? And solve problems. Next, please. All right, so what does it mean to think like a smart person? Pretty much think of thinking as you navigating toward a destination. And that destination is correctness. Now, if this was a philosophy class, people were like, wait, what do you mean by correctness? You have to define your terms, right? Correctness means you're trying to get to a sense of truth, right? Right decision at the appropriate action, right? You don't want to rely on your emotions, your experience, your intuition, right? You want to be able to put all that together, right? To get to a correct decision, right? To something that aligns to the truth, right? At the right time. All right, next, please. Now, to be aiming towards correctness, right? It's part of, like I said, part of your whole journey, right? You know, we all start as little people, right? We have to learn how to be in the world, right? So we spend, half our young adult life learning stuff, going to school, right? It's pretty much learning information, right? Acquiring knowledge, right? Then if you happen to have been to a great school or you with the right people, you learn how to apply that knowledge, right? Where it's almost the very same idea in mathematics, where you learn all these formulas and ideas, right? And there's a branch of mathematics called applied mathematics. It's pretty much what the branch of mathematics that engineers use, right? It's not just learning all these theories and ideas, but you also apply it in the real world to build stuff and do stuff, right? So it's applying knowledge toward a goal, right? Then now here's the big papa, right? As you learn all this stuff, you're learning all the correct way of thinking and applying all this knowledge and building an experience, right? The goal over time is to get better with your decision. That's where we come toward wisdom, right? Wisdom is about sound judgment toward to navigate complex situations with the long perspective, right? This is why some older people are alive, they always seem to know the right thing to say at the right time, right? Because over time they have built, right? They have built all our reasoning and all our learning, right? And help them with sound judgment. So when those difficult situations shows up, they know the right thing to say and the right thing to do. So that's what we're working toward. We're learning, we're reasoning to get toward wisdom to be able to make sound judgment, aiming for long-term decision, long-term perspective. Right, next. Now, so what does that mean when you compare a smart thinker versus the average thinker, right? So the average thinker, they're just collecting random stuff. They pretty much more following to their feelings, making quick decision, making quick opinion without really thinking about it. And they mostly think about defending their feelings, their positions. They tend to overcommit to idea. right? Without making sure that idea is correct, it's been tested, it's been validated by themselves or other people that they trust, right? So being a smart thinker is knowing that you may feel right about something, but it's not correct, right? And you have to let it go, right? And sometimes you might want to wait before you make a quick judgment, right? So you want to give yourself time for it to marinate, right? So that you make sure you're really doing it at the right time. It's not because it feels good or it sounds right? But because it's correct. But also being willing to test your ideas, to test your belief, right? Be around people that push back on you, right? To kind of to make sure that what you're doing is the right thing. Not because it feels good, it's quick, right? And it's helping you protect your ego, but it's the correct thing over the long distance toward your journey toward wisdom. Next. Now, the next few slides is about the methods, right? The methods you can use yourself to kind of improve your thinking, right? So you can start thinking like a smart person, right? So one of the key methods, right? Thinking as a smart person is realizing it's okay to be wrong, right? Before you're right, you have to be wrong. And that's okay, part of the process. You can't get to success without failure, right? It's like failure is a stepping stone. When you were little, you were learning new things. Most likely the first time you learn it, you fail. You didn't get it right? But over time, as you practice, you get better and better and better. So to be a smart person is accepting that fact, right? The way to rightness, I have to go to wrongness. And it's okay, it's part of the journey. So there's a lot of people who's afraid to fail, to get things wrong, but it's okay. To get it right, you have to first get it wrong. Ask any athletes, they will tell you that. You have to practice before you get really good at something, right? Which means you have to fail before you succeed. Next. Now, one of the key methods, right? The first method to really make sure your position is correct, right? You have to be able to explain it to yourself. If you don't know how something works, if you don't know how something really worked out, be careful holding that to be true, right? Like there's a lot of people who's very confused about like tested ideas because they don't question their own thinking. Let me give you an example. There's people that still believe that the earth is flat, right? They go on, they believe the ideas, the earth, right? But when you start asking them questions about if the earth is flat, why does the sun seem like it goes around, right? What does it seem like the further you walk, things start curving, right? When you start asking them these profound questions on how they believe will operate into the real world, then you can see they don't really know what the heck they're talking about, right? They're just saying things because they feel good, they want to be a contrarian, right? But they don't really know what their idea really means. What is it really saying, right? So that's one of the methods. Okay, next. Now, the next method, right? So if you're having a wonderful debate with somebody, right? It's okay to kind of think maybe that person is right, right? Because most people, they're saying something because they believe it to be right. I'm not saying you have to accept it as right? For example, right? The flat earthers, right? You're having a debate with them, like, wait a minute. And it's okay, why would this smart person seem to believe this, right? Maybe what they're saying has something of value, right? It's a position. For a moment, you cannot accept what that person is saying is believable to them, right? You don't just attack it and beat it, right? Then you now, by taking that position, right? Pretty much mean, you pretty much say, let's assume what you're saying is correct. Now explain it to me, right? Now, once you do that, they start explaining it and you really paying attention, they might be able to see their own false thinking, right? And you might be able to see where they're going wrong or where the gap is your own thinking, right? So you might learn something from that process. So that whole method is called stillmaning, right? Where you are strengthening that person's position to kind of give you better understanding toward your own position. All right, next. Now, this is one of my favorites, right? It's called the pre-mortem analysis, right? So for every idea you believe, right? You yourself, you may ask, if I was to follow this idea to its logical conclusion, right? what would happen, right? So it's almost like you're doing a visualization, right? You're at work, you're working on a project. You start thinking forward, what will cause that project to fail, right? So if you're a team lead and you're thinking forward, what will cause that project to fail, then you start realizing, oh, I don't have enough budget. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough detail on this project, right? So it's a way to kind of sharpen your thinking to realize where are the gaps in my decision to make sure in the long run I don't fail, right? It's pretty much you imagining failure before you even start. It's almost like going on a trip, right? Making sure you have a map, right? So you think to yourself, wait, in what way might I get lost? Well, I'm not familiar. Let's say you're driving from Texas to New York, right? Well, I'm not too familiar with driving to Alabama. So you might want to get a detailed map of Alabama. Well, Alabama has a lot of these turns, so I might want to drive in the daytime, right? By imagining the future, it clarifies your thinking for the present so that you don't fail. Next. Now, this is the help of a lot of people. You have to test your idea against people who don't agree with you. And it could be a friend, that's a contrarian, right? One of the people in this group is a perfect contrarian to my thinking. Whenever I'm trying to think through something, I always call her, and I know she's gonna challenge me, she's gonna think different. And by doing that, it illuminates my thinking. It's okay to have people in your life that disagree with you. They are a blessing, they are a treasure. They're gonna help you think through things. Not just disagree with you just to be an asshole, but disagree with you to help you expand your thinking, right? They help you find flaws on your reasoning, and that's a good thing. Value those people. So seek disagreeable allies. Again, the keyword disagreeable allies, right? That person is still a friend, but they're willing to push back on your thinking and help you close the gaps. All right, next. Now, realize, now, as Tyler said, right? Recognize the dopamine. A lot of time we're doing things out of feelings, right? Because it feels good, right? Like, you have an amazing idea and somebody's is pushing back, right? Now, because this idea is your baby, it feels good to own that idea, you get all defensive. Then that kind of cloud your thinking, right? Now, your reasoning is not really toward correctness, right? Let's say you have a business idea and you present it to a friend, and your friend is pointing out all the ways this business might fail. You get all defensive instead of receiving that advice from your friend that can help your business succeed. Now, because you get into your feelings, right, of that dopamine hit, because it feels good to hold that idea, right? It feels good to feel right about that idea and not change. Now you are setting yourself up for failure. So it's being influenced by your emotion. Now, emotion is not bad. It's a signal to take a pause and go a little deeper and say, okay, why am I feeling this way? What is going on, right? All right, next. Now, this next few slide is pretty much some ways you can help yourself think better, right? I'm calling those emergency protocol, right? It's almost like, you're having a heated conversation with a friend, things are being said. Take a pause, right? Take a pause, just so you don't say the wrong things, right? Also, if you're not sure about a business decision, look at your evidence, right? Why do I feel this is the right? What am I going off of, right? Am I going off of emotions, feelings, or do I have actual evidence to make this decision, right? And what am I going off of, right? Experience and evidence matters a lot of the time, but sometimes we are so quick to make decisions, we don't make a list of what the actual evidence we're trying to go on, right? And the next one, right? If you're not sure, it's okay to take a pause, right? Do research. Talk about it with another friend, right? Look into previous business ideas or project failure, right? It's okay to take a pause and make a list and go deeper. And one of my friends in this group, I always say that, right? Go deeper, right? It means research it, think about it a little longer. Next. Now, this is the next ideas, right? We pretty much went over this one already, right? Number 4 is the explaining, right? Trying to explain this to somebody, right? who kind of does they agree with you or agree with you, right? And see how they respond, right? Or wait, some if you're trying to make a big decision, right? Or small, it's okay, we'll wait. If you're trying to buy something big, right? They always say, if you're trying to spend more than $500, sleep on it, right? Wait 24 hours to 48 hours, right? To make sure is it a want or a need, right? Now, this is the best part, right? It's putting all of that together, right? That's where you start migrating toward wisdom, right? Where you start combining all that logic, all that evidence, all that intuitions, right? Toward getting that correct decision, right? That correct thinking. Next. Now, these next two steps is how you can help your thinking when you're having a conversation, right? So it's an acronym, THINK, right? The T stands for truth, the H stands for helpful, I inspiring, N for necessary, and K for kind, right? So as you speak with people in the back of your mind, right? You're trying to run this little algorithm, right? T being, what am I saying? Is it accurate or truthful, right? Because you don't want to be spreading lines, right? Or garbage, right? If I'm saying, is it going to be helpful or productive, right? Again, a friend is coming to kind of ask you some ideas on a business, right? You want to be positive and helpful, but at the same time, you want to correct them so that they don't fail, right? If what I'm saying is it inspiring, right? Is it uplifting? Is it motivating, or just being critical for no good reason, right? Just to be an asshole, right? If what I'm saying is necessary, right? Does that person need to hear this right now? And if they do, how do I say it so that I don't cause unnecessary, strife or emotion, right? It kind of lead into K, right? The kindness, right? You're trying to express yourself with compassion, right? Even though what you're trying to say might be hurtful, right? You're trying to be wise. That is the goal, right? You're trying to implement all these methods so that you can elevate yourself. Now, as you navigate your way toward learning, reasoning, and wisdom, you can think of it as leveling up, right? As a driver, right? When you're a young driver, you're 15 or 16, and you get your permit, right? You're starting off slow, right? You're still learning the rules of the roads, you know, you're spending sometimes a little too much, right? But over time, as you get better, right, you're becoming a skilled driver, right? You start speaking more in confidence, right? You start managing your speaking more in probability, right? The stuff you're kind of sure about, you might put your position at 90%. The stuff you're not really sure about, you put them at 10%, right? You're speaking with giving yourself grace and the other people grace so that they understand. Now, as you get older, right, you're becoming more of a wide driver, right? Where you are the person everybody come to kind of speak to, right? Where you're trying to be very selective how you approach, right? Where you trying to take everything into consideration before you make a decision, right? Where everything is toward the long term, right? You start thinking less and short term and more long term. And you become more comfortable with uncertainty because you realize it's part of life. You may not have an answer for everything, and that's okay. Next. Now, as saying all these things, right? But we know that the human mind has these glitches, right? In the scientific literature, those things called biases, right? It's little bugs, right? Sometimes we feel a little too confident about something because it's precious for us, right? That's called confirmation bias, right? Sometimes we hold something to be too dear, right? Like a bad relationship, we know we should let go of, right? And we hold on too dear, right? That's called endowment, endowment theory, right? Because you invested so much time, you want to hold on to something even though it's bad for you, right? So all these little biases are part of us, right? And knowing these little glitches and biases and bug about yourself will kind of help you navigate toward being a smart thinker because then you can take that into consideration, right? And kind of navigate it to make better decisions. Next. Now, this is the big one, right? Big one. Now, a lot of us, into higher education, with engineers or teachers, right? We tend to hold on to facts as being everything. Facts, like evidence, right, is not enough, right? Not because even if you're speaking with facts to somebody, right? If you're yelling at them, right? If you're emotional, that person is not going to be able to hear you, right? Where if you're in a group setting, right? You're not paying attention to everybody else, what they're saying, right? They're not going to receive you, right? A lot of time in our own thinking, we are too much about winning an argument, right? And or too much about looking good, with our club instead of actually trying to reason properly, right? Toward not just speaking, like I said, right? Not just speaking the truth, but you're taking everything into consideration, right? That's where the wisdom comes from, right? Where you're not just looking at the feelings, the facts, the social cohesion, but you're also seeing the pros and cons on how your thinking is affecting you and other people, right? Next. Now, so this is pretty much a little summary of everything, right? Pretty much on how to improve your thinking, right? This thing you believe in, right? This thing you want to do. Can you explain it to yourself or other people in detail, right? If you cannot, go back, do more research, right? Maybe you don't know as much as you think you know, right? Other people's ideas, right? Instead of rejecting them flat out, hear them out. Maybe they have something useful to contribute toward you, right? And process it, right? The next one is be measured with your confidence, right? Realize you're not God. You don't know everything, right? And give yourself a percentage, right? How much of that am I sure of, right? And then if you're only 50% sure, go ahead, do more research, right? Try and learn more, right? Try and gauge your positions on a spectrum from 0 to 100, right? And the next one is using that thinking method, right? As you speak, right? To kind of sharpen the way you deal with others, right? How you deliver the truth, how you try to be helpful, inspiring, right? Making sure what you're saying is necessary, and also being kind, right? The next, please. Now, we're getting close to the end, right? So the whole journey, right, on how to think like a small person, right? It's not about being perfect, right? Because a lot of time, like I was saying before, right? Before you get a success, you're gonna fail, right? So accept the fact that failure is part of the process, right? It's toward moving that goal, moving toward correctness, right? Which means moving toward wisdom, right? To be more truthful in your aim and your goal, right? Better prepared, better aware of your environment and everything it takes to be a successful thinker, right? And try and think purposefully, right? Being wise in your decision, communicate clearly and collaborate, right? All of that is just to help you be a smarter thinker, right? A smarter person, meaning you're more efficient in your attitude and your way of being in the world, right? And make less stupid mistakes, pretty much, right? Next. Now, this is a nice kind of quote that kind of put everything together, right? Realizing everyone has to start somewhere, right? Back to the idea, failure is part of the process, right? You can succeed without suffering, right? You can pass without first failing, right? It's okay. And every small person has to start somewhere. And it's a growing process. It's a learning process, a reasoning process to get to a correctness and wisdom one day. That is it. Any question? Moderator, you have the floor.
I want to first apologize. I did not know the chat was locked. Text. First, want to say how much I appreciated this because it's not what I expected when we was originally talking about it. I really appreciate the skills for like self-help and improvement. For me, that's what it resonates with, just like my own professional development. and better ways to communicate, think, and just assess better when it comes to how I respond to people. And it reminds me of the practice I'm already trying to do, which is slowing down, because you really have to slow down to actually use all of those steps from the beginning, the middle, to where you get more into that state of wisdom. But when when you're always like go on a go, go, go and multitasking, you
Right.
skip steps. You
Yeah.
skip steps. You try to do as perfect as you can to get it moving.
Yeah, it's in the fast moving world sometimes that we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot by being quick, and we should be slow and measured,
Agreed.
Any question? Gloria, Miss Perry, you're not saying anything. Are you okay?
I'm first giving everyone time to get feedback. I'm taking over Latoya's screen right now, but I'm giving everybody a chance to get feedback on the presentation first because I did make some notes, but I don't want to like jump in and take over yet. Can you unmute Angelique? I can't hear you. Oh, wait, I think you just came through. Go ahead.
Oh, like, I don't know, I thought it was very thorough, so I don't really like necessarily have like a lot to add. I was just taking it in and I don't really have any like questions or like rebut anything.
Anything anyone needs clarification on? If you don't mind sharing the slide again, Annette, maybe people have question on the particular section.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Gloria. I saw you unmuted.
I was just gonna say yes, very thorough presentation. And you really can't challenge the ideologies that you brought for. Am I on mute? Hello?
No, no, we
Oh,
can
we
hear
hear
you.
you.
We
Oh,
can hear. Yeah, we can hear you, Glo.
you really can't challenge the presentation, but the presentation causes you to challenge your previously your thoughts, your
Yeah.
thoughts, your positions, how you feel about the world around you. So I'm not going to challenge how to think a little bit smarter, but what I will challenge is if when people are standing on an idea, like certain ideas, because when it comes to average thinking, in certain communities, defending beliefs, defending a certain belief, which you classify as average thinking, right? And I think the biggest challenge here is when you encounter average thinkers or what, because that's also relative. When you call somebody an average thinker, that's a relative stance. But when you encounter that, how that's where you can start to debate. You get what I'm saying?
I definitely get what you're saying because I think that's kind of peppered throughout some of my notes with like, even smart people can be stupid sometimes. And it's to me, I think it's comes really to be you see it as more like their personality actually, because it's like they are hell bent on like a specific goal or pursuit. And that's just governing how they're reacting. And they may come with like a lot of facts and background information, all of that. And it's like, you're right, but you dead ass wrong.
I wanted to say I haven't been in a lot of situations where I even felt like challenging people that I considered like having average thinking. I just leave it alone. I don't have the mental bandwidth. I'm like, oh, okay. I just like smile, shake my head, and then just go about my business.
That's some smart stuff.
Right.
I was just gonna say when Angelique said that, like, especially in our current political climate, all of these hot button issues popping up across social media, the news, and everything. Like, I'm not challenging. Are we recording right now?
No, you're fine. Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Would you like
being
me to
Oh, it
recorded.
is recording. I want to make sure I'm appropriate with my language while you're recording. because
I can start recording if
no,
you
I
guys
just got
don't.
a few choice words for like I won't use profanity because sometimes I'll get, you know, passionate about something. But with there's a lot of things floating right now, hot button issues floating. And I'm with Angelique. I'm like, I look at a person and I'm like, you're a dumb A. And I don't have the bandwidth to challenge you. You're standing on a position, you standing on business, it's stupid business, but I don't have the energy. I don't have the energy to go back and forth with you about some of these hot button issues. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I want people to be open to testing their beliefs and their ideas, but some people are just stuck there. And if you don't have that energy to play double dutch with them, bouncing in and out of conversation, a lot of people just gonna be stuck on stupid.
And I don't want to give the impression being smart is something that's static, right? It's something you constantly walking through it, right? Because to me, being not smart is being happy with the way you think, right? Where you constantly defending your position even though it's wrong, like being a flat earther, right? No matter how many facts or ideas you keep like, no, 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 you're wrong, I'm right, right? That's being an average thinker, right? You're not willing to grow and learn, right? And challenge your own belief, right? Because the goal is not about you being right. It's navigating towards correctness, right? You try and become a wise person, right? Because it is wise sometimes to give up a position because it's just wrong, right? Because it's like imagine if our forefathers, right, where where the guy who first, invented the wheel say, Bob, look at this thing, look at the wheel. It's gonna help you, on your farm. You're gonna be to cultivate faster. You don't have to be doing all these work. Your kids are not gonna hit you because you're working them to death. It's like, look at this great idea. Try it. And you're like, nope, I'm like using the mule. The mule is reliable. I've been using the mule forever. Grandpapa and great grandpapa have been using the mule, and I'm just gonna keep using the mule, right? That's being an average thinker, right? You're not thinking past your own experience, your own history, right? And you don't see the benefit, right, of trying out these new ideas, right? And realizing, oh, my mule get tired, right? My mule, I need to have hay and all this stuff. With this wheel, if I'm maintenance, this thing, and I do the work of 10 mule, 1,000 mule, right? Is being willing to let go of dead ideas and appreciate lively ideas that's going to help you grow, right? And be a better you for your community or for yourself, right? Yes, it's about the whole postmodern ideas, right? Be able to project forward, right? How can that idea can I improve my own life, right? How will it my own idea will lead me to failure, right? If you raising kids, let me give you an example, right? If you raising little people, right, and you constantly calling them stupid, right? Long term, you can imagine, hey, if I'm keep calling my little person stupid, right? That person gonna grow up thinking they're a stupid person, right? So that should motivate you to change that behavior, right? Okay, I'm gonna stop calling my little person stupid because I don't want them to grow up believing that they're stupid, right? And have, an awful life because they keep thinking they're all failures. They will never amount to anything, right? So that's just how you can use these techniques to help you improve your own thinking and adapt, right? And learn and grow. So being smart, it doesn't mean it's just static. It's a willingness to change your mind and move towards correctness.
I think this really would be great for youth, for like like a presentation or a workshop working with young kids, because there's a lot of experience they have yet to have, and these kind of conversations that will help them in their communication as they are still like kind of developing appropriateness, inappropriateness, and thinking things out a bit more, learning getting their critical thinking skills built upon. When you got to, let me see if I can find it. It was like just right there, the wise convoy leader. I
Right.
thought of old man. And the only thing I thought of when I think about that was I don't give a shit. Because by the time you get there and the way that you explained it, just thinking like if that came with age, by the time you get there, certain ages, they just don't care.
Right. But the
Because
thing is
being
that
smart is protecting their mental health, and it's
right.
like
That is
shut
a part of
everything.
wisdom, right? You don't want to invest energy to nonsense, right? That is wisdom. Like, excuse my French, right? Like, once you get in your 50s, 60s, you stop giving a F, right? But again, that is our wisdom, right? You realize a lot of conversation on nonsense, right? You don't waste your time on stupid S's, right? Because you're like, I don't have time for this, crap, right? It's part of that wisdom, right? You become more efficient with your time management. You don't waste time on, stupidity and nonsense, right? You start being more optimal with, just buying into nonsense because I'm not going to invest my money into that, that idea, right? You don't have a really sound business, business plan, right? Be- Becoming more wise is become more efficient with your energy, with your thinking, right? It's not a bad thing. It's what older people, you know, they more measured, they more slow about deciding, without they're just old and slow. No, they're more calculating, right? It's that wisdom. They're applying that wisdom. They're not quick, to make decisions, right? They're more measured. They do things in small, and they think long term, right? That longer horizon. It's not just 6 months to a year, but they're thinking 3, 5, 7, right? 10 years in the future.
But I
That's
think
what
like
the
going back
wisdom.
to what Angelique was saying, she's at 60, but she's thinking the same way. Long
Right,
term,
right. But
it's not gonna serve me. So
right.
I'm
It
not
might
even
come
gonna
sooner
argue.
for some people, right? Wisdom might come sooner for some people, right? It might come late for some other people, right? There are people who are 60 who are still thinking like 20 something, right? They're making poor decisions, right? They're being quick temper, quick to reaction, right? Going in and out of relationship, right? Because those people, they still cultivating wisdom, right? They're not there yet, right?
I'm just gonna say like with Angelique is not 60, like it was just pointed out, and she was like, I don't have the bandwidth. So we can reach a level of wisdom at any age. That's just exactly what y'all were saying. I think the challenge that I am seeing in our current society is that a lot of people are followers and they are not original thinkers because original thinkers get canceled. People who question the status quo, they are called crazy. Right now, in our current culture, we do not value wisdom on a broad scale. Everybody is starting to look alike, talk alike, write alike. All the writing is the same. Everybody's writing with the same voice and tone. All the music sounds the same. So when you do challenge something, there's only two groups. One group that'll be like, wow, you're the brightest, sharpest pencil. You have the brightest color in the crayon box. And then, but a majority of people will cancel you, call you dull or dumb because you don't follow the masses. So being intelligent in our current society, it's hard to show that and model it because we have all become basically sheep that just follow and regurgitate ideas that are going because it's easier. Like for the people who are exhausted, who are smart, they don't speak up. The smart people are not speaking up because it's better to just blend in. And when you do speak up, you get canceled.
I mean, being wise does not necessarily mean you're brave or courageous, right? Some of the most courageous people I know are very stupid, right? Because they don't really care about their life, right? Where what you're saying as far as this feeling where 50% of the people are gonna support you and 50% is not gonna support you, right? Where you as yourself, a person who live by principle, right? And you adapt these ideas part of your principle thinking, right? Where I'm always gonna, be truthful and am I speaking? I'm gonna be helpful, right? I'm gonna be inspiring. I'm gonna make sure it's necessary, right? And I'm gonna be kind. Once you adapt these toward your own principles, it shouldn't matter what people think, right? because you're living by your principle, right? And as far as your thinking, right? Because you're adopting these thinkings to benefit your life, right? Doesn't matter what the people think, right? If you're thinking the correct way and you're working toward wisdom, that means you're gonna have a more prosperous life, a peaceful life, less bad decision, less nonsense, right? So it behooves you to adapt these practices for your own benefit, selfishly, right? But of
Yeah.
course, if you're acting correctly in the world for yourself, it's going to be benefit other people, right? You're not going to be quick to temper. So the people around you are going to love you more, right? You're going to be more measured and more wise with your expression. You're going to have friends because Gloria always tell the truth. Gloria always look out for people. Gloria is always kind, right? So by adapting these behaviors, you will build your own community, right? You will cultivate your own village of people that really should mean something to you, not just to be popular or famous on social media, right? For people who doesn't give a crap about you, right?
Wow. You said something that was right on target with my next comment, which was highlighting the people in your circle because you said village. And
Right.
it really in one of the slides, when it came to, having someone that can challenge you, that you trust, that's a friend, it really made me feel like everybody needs that to strengthen themselves in their circle. They need someone in the tribe that can help them reassess things and challenge them to not just rethink an idea, but to grow,
Oh yeah,
their own, like,
we only
wisdom
grow
themselves.
in their life. That person in my life is glow. Whenever I'm thinking through something, I call her and she's gonna push and make me think through all of it.
I you know, I really think we're in a very scary time. And I know you said, oh yeah, your wisdom is for you. I disagree on that point.
Okay.
And that vicariously, because you are operating in wisdom, people kind of get a benefit because they see you operating and they kind of get a benefit of being around you because you exude wisdom. Back in the day, our elders would tell us, they would talk to us, they would out and out say it. You get what I'm saying? And now people who do have wisdom, who have observed, challenged the thinking, they're quiet. They are quiet because they don't have the energy. You just don't have the energy to go back and forth with stupid people. However, it's not enough people with wisdom speaking up, whether it is fear of losing your job or getting, socially ostracized because you spoke up. There are a lot of followers, and when you like, I don't believe 50 agree with you and 50 disagree. I believe we're living in a time where the majority of society despises true wisdom. We need it, we're craving it, but when the one or two bold people stand up and say something, that instead of opening up your mind, we do challenge them. Challenge them to shut up, tell them that they're off, tell them that, you shouldn't think that way. But I got so many topics floating through my head, so many topics that I listen to people. I got a sense of wisdom, but people are not even open for the conversation. You can't even challenge the thought. So I'm like, Angelique, I'm going to just shut the F up. I'm going to just shut up. And I just let
Well,
people talk about certain issues and I just shut up.
now
There
we
needs
can't
to be
confuse,
somebody to talk.
right? We can't confuse being wise and bold, right? Those two things don't tend to go together, right? There's very few people in history where we can say that person was wise and also bold, i.e., courageous, right? Willing to put their life, their principle on the line for what they believe, right? So you're right. A lot of wise people don't speak up, and too many stupid people are speaking up, right? Now, a lot of time we confuse the loudness as being bigness, right? the loudest people on social media is not the majority, right? They loud, they know how to, monopolize that blowhorn, right? To make it appear that they are part of the majority, but they're not, right? They're the extremists. They are a small subset of a small subset of a population, right? Even in in politics, right? The independent voters are bigger than people who claim to be Democrat and those who claim to be Republican, right? Now, if you go into the Republican subset, right, very few of those guys are the extremists who all pro business, right? Or they all hate women, right? Or they all not, that's a subset of a subset, right? So it's not the majority. It's those very small group who are very loud and annoying, right? And they monopolize the mic and give us the impression that a lot of people believe as they do, because most people, like you say, don't want to get in the water. They don't have the time for it. Like, I don't want to debate this person. This person is stupid. Why waste my energy, right? So it make it appear that most people agree when they do not. They just don't want to get in the fight, right? And the few that get in the fight, because they don't get the support, they feel like they're fighting alone, right? So it's really the battle between the very, very, very small group on both sides that is driving the narrative in the middle, where most people don't feel the way they do, right? Even in the voting, more people don't vote than the people that vote, right? You would think, oh my God, a majority of people voted for you know who. But if you look at the actual stat, the actual registered voter or people who are eligible to vote, a majority of them do not vote. They're on the sideline, right? So we have to be careful not to confuse those loud and knowing people as being the majority, and then the people who actually are engaged as representing the larger group when they do not.
Right. I think Angelique wanted to say something. She unmuted.
Oh, I'm unmuted. That's
Yeah.
funny. I was agreeing, like mentally, even though I wasn't saying anything, I was agreeing with what Gloria's saying. And I think also sometimes being quiet is wise. I spent a good portion of my life trying to avoid the company of fools, especially if I'm outnumbered, because that can be, and I'm talking like literally and figuratively, but it can be dangerous. And also, the thing that she said that I was thinking beforehand was like, the same thing that she said, I didn't have to be to my like 50s or 60s or 70s to reach a limit where I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this. I'm not. Also, now I feel like we're tiptoeing into like an adjacent conversation, which is making me think about a YouTube video that I saw, I think like just yesterday, the day before, and I was actually trying to look for it, but it was basically talking about like, why is it that like, it seems like the stupidest people are in the highest positions of power, just like across the board. And it wasn't even a long video, maybe like 20 minutes, but it kind of just broke down like those attributes and qualities that tend to get people, that make people confident that they can do a job, are also the things that make them not efficient at doing it. And it kind of reminded me of like, kind of like what we're talking about now about like wisdom and culturally what's going on, and like, is it even worth trying to change that tide, or is it just better to kind of just be still and quiet and blend in? Especially when you don't know how to fix it or what even the end goal is with everything going on. So it's like, I don't even have a plan, because I don't, what game are we even playing? I don't know the rules, and we literally just keep ripping the rug out from under people's feet. And I see that, and I see certain things, but if I can't even explain it to somebody effectively because it sounds outrageous and I don't even know what the plan is. So it's like, it almost sounds like I'm talking out of my butt.
No, and that's a good feeling, right? And that was part of that method one, right? If you real enough with yourself and say, wait a minute, I don't know what the hell they're talking about. What is the Federal Reserve? What does the Federal Reserve do, right? And you realize, oh, I got a knowledge gap. People are talking about interest rate and all this stuff. I have no idea what the Federal Reserve does, right? So you, as a smart person, you go on Wikipedia, right? You start reading on the Federal Reserve, right? You start reading about the history of the Federal Reserve. What do they do? How many regional Federal Reserve, right? How do they manage money? Oh, wait a minute, they hold all of that, right? What's the security? You start educating yourself, right? and you start playing the mental model of yourself, and you start asking it, okay, what does the Federal Reserve does? That da 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 da, right? When do they do it, right? You start going through the step to make sure you comprehend it. Now, next time when it come up in a conversation, you're gonna be able to contribute, right? You're gonna be able to say, oh, well, guys, I don't think you're correct about that. The Federal Reserve does not control the government. They more work with the government. If I did, they do this, right? Where you can help people correct their own idea. So feeling like you don't know is a sign of wisdom. It's a sign of you walking your way to be a small person, right? Because you have to first recognize you at the beginning phase, right? I don't know enough about this topic to speak intellectually, right? And to educate yourself, right? Do that learning thing, right? So first, before you get to reasoning and wisdom, you got to start with learning, right? You start acquiring knowledge, right? Then you can apply the knowledge, right? Then you can know when is the right way to apply that knowledge. That's where that wisdom comes.
I don't know if you interpreted what she was saying correctly.
I'm saying not. It's okay to feel like you don't know, but again, it's an
No,
opportunity to
she was
learn.
saying because things are changing so rapidly, it feels like she specifically said like the rug is ripped from underneath you, so
Right.
you don't even know what the
Okay.
rules are, so
Right.
it's hard to navigate.
It's
You know,
okay. It's okay.
it's
Right. It's almost you driving in a fog, right? Suddenly there's clear visibility, right? And now the road is foggy. What do? You pull aside, right? You wait for the fog to pass, or you look at the map, right? And you're trying to find a different way to go, right? Or you trying to navigate to the fog slowly, right? Informatively, right? You trying to make small decisions at a time, right? You educate yourself. So to me, a fog is not a bad thing. It's part of life, right? You have to navigate through uncertainty, difficult situations where it's okay. It's part of life. What do? You adjust, right? Okay, I don't know enough about this topic. I'm going to learn about it. Okay, what is the new rules of the road, right? Suddenly, up is down, down is up. Okay, you learn the new rules of the road, right? Again, I'm not comfortable in not knowing. I have this flaw about myself, right? When I feel like I don't know enough about something, I'm willing to go read about it and learn about it, right? And I feel like being a small person is walking toward always be willing to learn, right? And change your mind and adapt to new situation, right? Because the world is not gonna stay still for you. It's always gonna change, right? It's always changing. And intelligent is adapting to a changing world, right? The quicker you can do it, the more intelligent you are, right? So, because the world does not stay still, your own body does not stay still, right?
I
It's
don't
not like
agree
as a
that
very small thing.
intelligence.
It only grow, right?
I don't agree that that's intelligence to
Okay, to
constantly play
adapt.
catch up.
Well, not
Yeah, but
catch
I'm
up,
definitely gonna
or
have to
to
challenge
adapt.
that.
Intelligence is adapting to new environment, right? It's adapting. It's how you adapt to your environment. That's what
I
intelligence.
think
And
that the fact that we have reasoning skills is like, you have that regardless of you make a good decision or not, and you're adaptating.
right.
That's but I think where it started to like the conversations kind of led to is just that at some point I don't want to adapt. I don't care to know anymore.
Okay. But what if not adapting mean you're gonna lose your job, you're gonna lose your life, you're gonna lose, everything. It behooves you to learn to adapt, right? If everything around you is changing, we are under a new political order, right? You things might go sideways real quick, right? Not adapting, not knowing, not staying informed to what's the changing environment. It's putting you at a disadvantage, right? If it, excuse my French, if shit hit the fan, you need to leave, right? You need to know
I
what's
think
going on,
it
right?
depends
That
on the
is adapting,
context.
right?
It depends on the context because just because you don't follow doesn't mean you can't adapt for your survival to something else.
Right. And that's the part of, again, the learning and growing toward wisdom, right? It's accepting the fact that the world is changing. You're gonna fail, and that's okay, right? You're gonna not know, and that's okay. But you can move toward knowing. You can move toward correctness, right? You can learn over time to become more wise in your decision, in your judgment, right? Start thinking more long term, long perspective. And you don't have to get in the fight, right? Not everybody is made to be, to go and debate people, right? Some people are wired for it. I'm one of those people, right? It give me life, right? To argue with people. Other people, it drain them. So I'm always debating and
Yeah.
finding somebody online, right? Yes, Annette. Yes, yes. I'm wired that way. Some people are not, right? And they don't want to get in a fight. You don't have to. Let the people like me who want to get in the fight and go do the fisticuff, right? Let us be up there, right? But also be willing to speak up when you have to, and let it know that you're part of the majority that think this is dumb. We should do things this way.
Right, Angelique, you wanted to say something?
Oh, I don't know. I forget. It's okay.
I do want to go back to something you had mentioned in developing this when we talked about health professionals, because that really resonated with me in commenting on smart people, following smart people in the decisions that they're making and relying on those with more experience, relying on those professionals. Can you expound on that for the group?
Okay, do you mean from the presentation, the whole beginner, convoy, and skill driver?
Oh.
Is that what you're talking about
Yeah.
from the presentation? Right, I
Right,
have those
when
like that,
we had
right?
discussed relating it to professionals in like certain fields.
Right. So, if imagine, right, in like a medical setting, right? So you have a nurse, right? A brand new nurse right out of school, right? So that's more of a beginner, right? And you have a senior nurse, right? Who's been doing it for 20 years, right? With they more of a skill, a skill practitioner, right? Then you have, the person who's on the verge of retirement, right? They've been doing it for 30, 40 years, right? They're more wise, right? And they have built the intuition from their experience, right? To know not to overreact, to every little signal, right? To know when to go deeper into, to look for more information, right? Where the new nurse, right, because they have their own anxiety, they're nervous on the job, right? All these signals is confusing their thinking, right? Where the more skilled nurse, right, they've been on the job for a while, all that anxiety, emotions, and feeling, it doesn't so much cloud them anymore, right? So they're more measured, right? They're more analytical, right? Where the wise old nurse, because of their experience, right, they know what signal to totally avoid, right? It doesn't even don't even waste your energy on that signal. It's just noise, right? And know how to take appropriate action, right? So that is the idea of how this thinking works in a work environment, right? And also how you can apply it to yourself, right? If you're starting a brand new project, right? In a brand new department, you are the beginner. Accept the fact you're a beginner, right? So at that stage, you should be inquiring, asking for information, right? Relying on people who's been in that group for a while, right? They may know more than you, right? To really help you, around you, to make those decisions. Or over time, you become a more skilled leader, right? Then you might rely less on people's opinion because you've done this before, right? But at the same time, you're aware enough that they might see something you don't see, right? And be willing to kind of stillman their position. If you're in a meeting and someone say, "Hey, Bob, have you thought about this?" Instead of shutting them down, you hear them out, right? They may be, because you've been doing this for so long, you may have some blind side, some blind spot now, right? So it's be willing to hear the people's opinion because they might have something important to say, right? And over time, to be that wise leader, to also be sharing, right, what you know, and help the younger ones not be quick on their decision, right? To be more small and slow and measured in their actions.
Thank you. It definitely reminded me of times where, I don't know, I think I said it before too, where you just kind of forget, or you get so caught up with whatever it is that you forget that there is someone smarter than you at this, and you should reach out. Sometimes it's outside of your community, your tribe. And I just wanted to throw that out there for people because sometimes I just kind of need that reminder, like reality check. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an electrician. Like I know a couple of things in a couple of areas, but there are people out there who do it better. and we should take more time to reach out. I want to say rely, because everybody, has relationships in the way they have them for a reason. But I think that would really help with what Gloria had talked about with the current climate of things and why we're kind of all seemingly following and disconnected. Because especially when you are isolated and everything is online or being funneled down through AI, you're getting a whole lot of yes men in a sense, because either it's echoing back your personal algorithm and things you've already been kind of cycling through, or you're not reaching out. So you're kind of answering your own questions a lot of times, and you're not getting any outside expertise or challenge to whatever it is you're trying to work through. So it's just like a reminder to people to slow down, reassess, and maybe reach out to someone a little smarter than you, a little bit more wisdom and experience than you.
Right. Because being smart is realizing you don't know everything, right? And trust the source, right? Not doing your own research sometimes, with trusting other people that have the education, the experience, and know-how, and being able to validate it, right? And where a lot of the time, doing your own research gonna lead you on the wrong path, because you don't know what other people know in that field. That those are lost paths, right? Other people have been down those paths and they lead to nowhere. But you not knowing that, you start your own research, you go down these dead end paths, and then you feel like, well, this is useless. Not knowing, no, somebody else been there already. You should do this, 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 this. And if you had to rely on someone that's a master in that field, they would have helped you get faster, right? So being smart is realizing your own gap in your own knowledge and being willing
Yeah, I like that.
to kind of default to experts.
Thank you, Daniel. Did anyone else want to chime in before I wrap up the group for today?
If you're
gotta go
interested,
back.
I did add those source material. I'm sorry, Glo. I don't tell people before we end. I did add it. I dropped those documents in the chat. If you want to access the background material, go ahead, Glo.
I just wanted to go back to something that Angelique had said about our current culture, and she pointed out that a lot of our leaders and the people who are ending up at the top positions in companies, top positions on jobs, the leader of the free world, like these are not smart people, right? We got off on some tangents, but a lot of stuff is bothering me right now. A lot of stuff is bothering me. And one of the things that is bothering me is the mediocrity that I'm seeing and the lack of intelligence. You think people are in these positions and you think, wow, they're so deep, they're so smart, until you sit down and have a regular conversation with them. And you're like, you're in charge? You're freaking in charge? You gotta be effing kidding me, right? And so I think when Angelique was speaking earlier, we got off on a tangent because she was making a powerful point there, a very powerful point. And okay, I need to calm down. I'm gonna just I'm gonna mute myself because I don't want
No,
to.
you're fine.
No, I don't want to be
try.
cussing. I'm gonna mute myself. But
No,
I just
no.
wanted to point out, I just wanted to go back and say, Angelique said a whole mouthful, and we didn't dive into that.
No. I'm not saying
I
what they didn't say
definitely
was wrong.
recognize that.
Right. But the
And
thing is,
segue
we have to let go of some assumptions we used to hold, right? Like smart people become leaders, right? Our own personal experience tells us that's not always true, right? It's not always the smart people that become leaders, right? Again, because we tend to confuse being bold and brave and courageous with being wise, smart, right, and knowledgeable, right? Those two things don't go together, right? Because a lot of times people choose leaders not based on their intelligence or intellect or knowledge or wisdom, right? because they like the way the guy look, right? Or they like the way the guy sound, right? Or it's somebody they want to have a beer with, right? Which are just stupid reason to pick a leader, right? Where as our society become more confused because people don't know how to filter and process information, right? Everything is being held at the same level, then because of that confusion, people make bad decisions because they're confused, right? So we are at a point in society, pretty much the same places we were when the printing press was first invented, right? It took a long time to go to that initial first contact with the printing press because a lot of people were publishing garbage. And people did not know just because something is in print does not mean it's true, right? It took a long time for us to get there, to start building the institutions, the intellectual muscles, to realize just because it's in print does not mean it's true. So then we start learning the difference between the New York Times and the National Enquirer, right? We had the antibiotic for that, right? Now we're in a new phase of social evolution, right? We are moving from hard media to social media or digital media, right? So we're gonna need some new tools on how to process this new media, right? Not everything in the internet is true. Not everything on your feed is true. Not everything is there is good for you. It might have been put there to confuse you to buy stuff you don't need to impress people who don't care about you, right? So we need to build our muscle, right? Build new immune systems, right? To come, to function in this new environment. So, Angelique, you are correct. With the rug being pulled under your feet, you feel like it's confusing. Because again, we are in a new phase of society, right? We are going away from hard media, i.e., print media, to more digital media, where things are going super fast and we don't have the antibody for it right now, right? It's very confusing, right? And we have to learn and grow and adapt to start knowing how to filter it out the way we had to learn how to filter it out through the print media. I hope that helped.
That was excellent, Daniel. Couldn't say it by myself. I like that, how you explain that. I definitely want to take this offline so we can add on to the conversation. So I want to first say to our listening audience, thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you next month for another conversation and more ways for us to get together and to support the community. Have a good night. Stop.